morning, it's Diane from So Charming Quilts, and I am here again today. We are going to work on January's quilt of the month. It's the Pearl Stars. It's the Robert Kaufman 2022 calendar quilt. We are going to make each quilt this year, and we will have 12 quilts by the time we are done at the end of the year. So Pearl Stars. I wanted to show you some of my organization tips along the way. As I cut all of my pieces, I took the little salvage edge and I attached those to my chart because I wanted to make sure that I could differentiate between all those blues. Some of those blues are very similar in color, and I wanted to make sure that I was organized and keeping those colors all straight in my piles. I have those piles on my cutting table. When I took and cut them, let me zoom in here, I labeled them with the alphabet that coordinates with it, so that I have all of my pieces. But in case I lose my pieces or lose my little pieces of paper, those are all labeled and they're on my chart so that I can go back and reference those. Today we're going to be making the half square triangles. Now I want to show you in the pattern, it gives you all of the color combinations of all of the half square triangles. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of making a half square triangle. My first step is to take one of my squares, and on the lighter side, I am going to draw a line down the center of my half square triangle, or of my square, I'm sorry. So here's my square, and I've drawn that line down the center. I'm going to make sure when I take it to my machine that my pieces are lined up right on top of each other. And then I'm going to sew a scant 1/4 inch along both sides of my drawn line. Now, normally when I would do this, I would chain piece these because you're going to make 264 of them, and doing them individually would take forever. But for today's video, we're just going to make one. So you can see I've drawn my line, and now I've sewn a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of my line. I'm going to take it to my iron, and I'm going to give it a quick press. I give it a quick press just to set those seams in my triangle. So I gave it a quick press. Now I'm going to take it to my cutting table, and I'm going to cut along that diagonal line. So now I have two pieces of my half square triangle. I'm going to take them to my iron, and I'm going to press them so that I press to the dark side. So you can see I've pressed my seams to the dark side. Now we'll talk about later when we actually do our block construction. Some of them we will actually go back and repress those seams to the opposite side, because when we nest all those corners and points together, we want those to fit together nicely. But for the meantime, we're going to press all of our seams to the dark side. Now I'm going to talk about trimming them. When I trim my half square triangles, I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm going to use my 45-degree diagonal line on my ruler, and I'm going to line that line up here with the line on my half square triangle. I also want to make sure that I leave enough room on each edge because I want to make 4 cuts. I want to trim this up so that it's nice and square, and I want to be able to trim on all 4 sides. So I'm going to trim the first 2 sides. And I've trimmed here and here. Then I'm going to turn my triangle, and I'm going to line my line up, and I'm going to line these lines up against my 2.5 inch edge, because we want a perfect 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch half square triangle. Now I've cut all 4 edges so that it's no longer wonky and it's square. I also want to show you real quick, once I had all of my half square triangles assembled, and as I was cutting them, I put them into bags and I labeled all my bags so that when I go to actually put my squares together, I can just grab from the correct bag the certain number of half square triangles that I need. I just wanted to show you, give you a sneak peek of the first block. We'll be putting this together later today, so come back and join us for another video. Bye!